You are listening to the Hammersley Brothers e-commerce podcast. Like what you hear and want to take the shortcut on your e-commerce growth? Join hundreds of brands that work with us and head over to joinhb.com. That's joinhb.com and see how we can help you further. Join our members and smash your targets and unlock the profits within your e-commerce site. Good morning, Ian. How are you?
Afternoon, Mark. Well, good. How are you?
Awesome. Right, so we're going to do a listeners' questions session today. And I thought I'd just start with the questions we're going to answer so people can see which question they're most interested in and whether they're interested in the podcast. So, and also to tell you what they are. The first question is, how much should I spend on ads? Second question is, when starting a new site, is it best to have a local domain like a .co.uk or a .com? Third question is, what should be your first hire when you want to scale e-commerce sales? Yeah. So who should you hire first? So now we can talk about the weather. Ian.
Yeah. How is the weather?
Rainy.
It's raining here. Snap.
Yeah.
The summer has ended and it's not begun. And
some of our clients will be very happy.
Yeah. Welly man.
Homeware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think but majority of e-commerce, I would say, generally quite, because mainly the weather's really, it's a great distraction. I think, there one or two.
Did you see garden centres? Did garden centres do well? I thought they did a little bit well at the beginning and it kind of dropped off.
Well, online garden centres. Yes, I think they did well because it brought the season earlier, but then of course it did nothing grew because it was so dry that I think there's a problem. But basically, I think generally, they did well. All things considered in the overall period, it makes a massive difference. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah. To be honest, like bedding, we actually had really good weekend, didn't we? Like
this weekend,
unexpectedly. So yeah.
I did check on the Friday. It was a bank holiday weekend.
Yes, but there's been bank holiday weekends previously where we've done the normal offer, but it really hit this weekend. It really gave us a big boost to the end of the month.
Actually.
Because we were looking at not that much up year on year compared to some of the previous months, and then now we're up. We're up considerably. Yeah. Which is nice.
Yeah, well, let's have a look. So we did a Saturday. So normally we were doing like about £7,000 a day. And this weekend we did 18 every day. Saturday we did 18, Sunday we did 18. So, it's more than
I think what happened was we started getting these really big orders. Did you notice that about
average order
last week?
Went up.
Well, there was like a couple of £1,000. Well, I think it's the
B&Bs.
It's the B&Bs that are getting ready for the season, aren't they?
So basically, for anybody who doesn't know, we one of our test play demo stores is sells bedding in the UK online.
Yeah.
And
I wouldn't call it a demo store. I just say it's the store we use to teach everybody in the program.
Yeah, that's better.
So we open it up and we show them the behind the scenes.
We run it as a real business, and we are making the same decisions. We're making the same decisions that you're making. When
it's just out of the e-commerce sites that we run, it's the one that we talk about because we've decided to open up behind the scenes, basically. So that's what we talk about.
Put our money where our mouth is.
Exactly.
Tried and tested.
So it was a really good weekend. Yeah. I haven't seen how it's done today. I haven't looked yet.
Well, I was just checking actually. I'll have a look. We can carry on chatting if you want me to go and have a look. Do you want me to have a look?
No, we'll answer the questions because we're supposed to be answering bloody questions.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Yeah, exactly.
Hang on, I've lost the questions now. Okay, so let's go to the first question. The first question is, how much should I spend on ads? And, well, I think this is a two-part question, don't you think? Well, the answer is different for established business.
Two-part, So the first part of it is if you were just starting, if you've got a brand new business and you want to know how much you should be spending on ads, and the second is if you're an established business and you want to scale. So what you do the first one?
Okay, I'll do the first one. Right. So I get this question answered a lot because people go, no, I'm starting up an e-commerce business and I need to know how much money to budget for ads. And that's a very difficult question because, well, first of all, you don't know whether it's going to work straight out the bat. And the way I say about a new marketing channel, it's almost like you have to date and marry the marketing channel. And often it takes about 9 months to get to the point where you can marry a marketing channel.
When the baby comes.
Yeah, well, it's not something that happens instantly. If you look at Betting Envy, the betting site we were just talking about, it did take 9 months for Google to let us into the markets, the big markets where we would sell white sheets. And so, I mean, for anyone that freaks out, it doesn't always take that long, and you can get some traction before that. But I think that most of the businesses I've worked with or set up, they've had that learning period where we just had to get through almost like a sandbox. So my advice to people starting ads is to spend an amount you can afford to lose at the beginning whilst you're learning. Because what you don't want to do is say, I've got $2,000 to put into ads, I'm going to spend that, and if nothing happens, I'm going to give up. Because then you're out of the game. You're better off putting money in that you can afford to kind of, sustainably use, build something, and get to the point where that becomes sustainable. Now, there is caveats to that, in that there are some businesses when you start advertising and it is absolutely crap. Like, it's never going to get anywhere. So I'm not saying that that's relevant for everybody. Like, just go on forever putting a little bit of money in that you can lose forever. Because even at the beginning with the betting site, there was signs that it was going to work. So we were getting some sales. The ROAS wasn't a million miles away from where we wanted it to be. It was basically in a position where it was polishable. So that's the difference. Like, there have been businesses I've started where I've put money into ads and it just hasn't happened. So for example, like my son's business who does print on demand maps, he can sell on Facebook, but he can't sell on Google. Like, Google was very difficult for him to sell just because of the type of map and business he was selling, because no one was really looking for it.
Can I just ask some practical questions? Because I think I hear what you're saying. You're saying basically, and I'm going to challenge you on this because I don't think that that's clear enough.
Okay.
Actually, and as my brother, I can say these things. It's it's easy to criticize.
Not offended.
But I'm gonna, we're gonna say things. So, I think from a practical perspective, what would be useful to tell people is, I think, a couple of things. Like, because I get asked this question, and I give, I think, a slightly more practical answer. Because when I refer this question to you will say what you've said. You said you just don't know, and I go, well, I know Mark will say this, so I'm going to give you the right answer. So I would say I would approach it from two perspectives. Number one, you should have a basic idea of what your cost of acquisition should be. A basic idea. So what I mean by that is, if your margin is 20% versus a margin of 80%, you can afford to spend a bit more if you have a higher margin. So you should have a basic idea, but it should be coined with the following phrase: it will be as shit as it possibly ever will be when you first start. It will be as the worst it could be. You'll have the worst conversion rate, the worst ROAS. It'll be really poor. But like you said, if you can see some signs that you're getting traction, then that is useful. The third point I'd make is that you need to spend enough in order to give the ads a chance to have a little bit of data. So what do we mean by enough? So what is enough? So I would always say you need to be spending at least a couple of $1,000s a month. At least a couple of $1,000s a month before you would get, and obviously you'd spread it out over a period of time. But what would you say would be enough? Like, well, if I said to you, I spent $500 on ads and it didn't work. So ads don't work for me. What would you say to that?
Yeah.
Or how long was that? What would you say?
Again, I'd say I'd look into it and see what the business was and where they needed to be. Because everybody we talk to, we teach the margin calculator. So we go, well, what ROAS do you need? And if the ROAS calculator comes out and say, I need a 10 ROAS, and I know that in that industry, most people are getting a 3 and they're really optimized, then I'm like, well, you're way off where you need to be, and you're just not going to do it. But as if the margin calculator comes out and they'd say, well, I need a 2.5, and I know most people get 3, then I think, well, that's doable. And then I'd look at their account and I'd go, well, there's signs of, either the signs of promise here. You're getting add to baskets and add to carts and things like that are happening, and maybe you've used the wrong kind of ads, or something, something's happened, or maybe you've just got really bad ads, like they're just really terrible ads or meta ads and those kind of stuff. So I think probably the best thing to go to is how I did it with my son, because my son's not got much money. He was 16 years old when we started it. So we just started spending $25 a day New Zealand in Australia, and sold his Australian map. And as he got sales in, we increased the spend, and that was enough to get started.
Can I just add something very quickly before you also carry on? Is that the way we coach brands is to be mindful. I'm not saying this very well, am I? But the way we coach brands is to be mindful of who they are trying to compete with. Do you remember the market square test that we used to talk about years ago? Mm-hmm. We used to talk about the market square test. Yeah, okay, yeah, good. I've forgotten about it. These geniuses, these things we come up with. The market square test is imagining that you are in a market square and you're selling exactly the same thing everyone else is selling, and you're at the back of this market square, and there's like another 50 market traders, all with everything laid out, and you can start to see their offering, their pricing point, their offer architecture, the returns policy. You can see it all right in front of you, and you're trying to convince them to buy from you. So before you go into this going, I'm going to spend a load of cash on some ads, you should have you should go through that market square test, which we tell people how to analyze, which is basically going, is my price competitive? Is my delivery competitive? Have I got my returns policy right? Is the photography any good? Now, I'm not saying you don't need to get this perfect, but you need to have a basic look at it. Would I buy from myself? And then when you're going into the market and you are spending some money on ads, you because I would argue that if the ads don't work, it is a much bigger reflection that there is a problem in your business, not that there's a problem with the ads. I'd say there's a problem fundamentally inside your business, that you're trying to find that product to market fit. You're saying, can I make this product and sell it? And and you can always refine things. You can get things better. But if you're getting nothing, I tell you, there was one business that we were launching relatively recently, and it was a Meta business. It was a product I'm selling on Meta, but it was such a broad product that we couldn't find the audience, because it was basically like anyone who had a house. It was so difficult. Yeah. Any person that has a house in the UK, there wasn't any distinguishing factor. So that was quite difficult. But we needed to have a period of time. So going back to your original, your answer is absolutely right, that it does depend, and you have to have a period of wedding in. It's like dating, isn't it? You're testing stuff, you're seeing how whether or not you gel, and it does take time before you fully commit, and it does vary based on different businesses, and again, if you're selling other people's products versus your own products. But so the answer's right, but you've got to have a an inkling of what the maths need to be. Sorry, do you want to move on to the second point? Everything,
you've got everything lined up.
Rambling.
Yeah, go into the second one. So basically,
the second one is because it's linked to the first, isn't it? The second one is okay. How much should I be spending on ads? This is for a more established business. This is a business that's proved that they have got a basic product market fit, that they can sell stuff. And now they're like, okay, we've got the basic going, got the fundamentals right. We now want to scale. And that's a far easier answer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you want me to give
Well,
my
I could say,
opinion?
but I will have a very complicated answer, and you might have a very simple answer. So you do your simple answer first,
okay.
and then I'll massively
okay.
confuse the
I'll
audience
take that as a
with
compliment.
my answer.
Take that as a compliment, not Ian, you're thicko and you're going to simplify it. But no, I'll take it to go. So yeah, if you are an existing business and you want to know how much you're spending on ads, well, in order to know how much you're spending on ads, you need to know your basic things. You need to go to the margin calculator in your number sheet, and it's based on margin and lifetime customer value. And that will tell you, we always like to have about a 20-25% profit contribution in a year. That's our basic guide. So it tells you what return on ad spend you should be aiming for, like a new customer return on ad spend. And it's like deciding when to open your shop. If you had a physical shop on the high street, a retail store, the first question you'd be asking is, well, when should we be open? And that depends on how much it costs to run the store, and how much the customers are worth, and how many customers come in. And you'll notice that at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it's busy. You might get more business at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but at 6 o'clock in the evening, it might be much quieter, and there's not as many customers around, and they don't spend as much. But how much does it cost to put staff in that shop at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and how much business do you get? It's basic, it's cost versus profit, isn't it? And in order to answer that question, it is simply margin and lifetime customer value over a year. And I would just say, if your ROAS is too high. So if you do the margin calculator, which is in the numbers sheet, which is very simple, basically it's like, your product costs versus your pick pack costs, product costs plus pick pack costs versus delivery costs, and you're just looking at what the customer spends in a year. You're doing the same ratio. And if your return on ad spend is too high, so if it's like, if you're operating at a 15 return on ad spend, ROAS, 15 times return, and the margin calculator says you could operate at a 5 and still make a really good profitable contribution of 25% at the end of the year, then off you go. You should be spending more. I mean, the other scenario to factor in is your fixed costs. And whether or not you've got to spend enough to get over your fixed costs. And the other scenario would be, where do you want to be? If you're doing £1 million a year and you want to be 10 million, in 3 years' time, you want to do 10 million, well, you're not going to get there unless you increase your traffic. So the question would be, well, how much do I need to spend in order to get to 10 million? And how can I change the business so that I can, 10x my spend, and that's the real interesting answer, which is probably what you're going to, because you said keep it simple and I'm going to overcomplicate it. I thought I'd get in all the complicated bits so that you had no thunder. You had nothing to say. There's nothing you can add except some sort of analogy.
No. So my answer is how much I should spend is effectively work out what an acceptable profit you want to take out of the business each month, right? So whatever the acceptable profit, let's say you want to take £4,000 profit after costs and all salaries and all that kind of stuff, or £10,000 or whatever like that. But take that, right? And then do the spend the amount that gives you the highest profit velocity for that amount. So we talked about profit velocity in the last podcast or the previous one before. So let's say I'm taking out $5,000 from my business a month. Now, $5,000, I could be doing 200 orders a month at 500 ROAS, or I could be doing 400 orders at 350 ROAS. So effectively, I'm taking the same amount of profit, but there's different profit velocities. So to be honest, this is probably one of the areas where we help the most with people. We model everything. We give them a modeling sheet and we actually tell them what they should be spending at each time. That's exactly what the modeling sheet does. And we've been running the number sheet now for about 12 months, maybe, no, 2 years. And I added the modeling sheet maybe about 6 months ago. and then I just added the profit velocity to it. And so these are the things that come to me as I drive to the gym, and I basically just keep going, oh, that would be really good, because it's all very well doing it for yourself, for your own business, but it's another thing teaching other people. So I think that whole what do I spend and why, we can help people visualize it in a much better way now than we used to be able to, because we can actually see it, and we can see the profit velocity across all the businesses and say, well, you've got a real opportunity here to spend more, or if you spend more, you're not really going to do much difference, so you may as well stay where you are.
You're just sucking profit.
So I think that you maximize the profit velocity for the amount of profit you want to take out at the moment, because like, yes, I might get £5,000 this year, but where am I going to be next year? I could either be sitting doing £10,000 profit this month next year, or I could be doing £30,000 profit this year. Whereas I could actually have the same amount of profit taken out of the business this year. It doesn't make a difference, but the profit velocity is very different.
I think e-commerce has matured as an industry since COVID. And I think prior to COVID, and just during COVID, I think there was this whole, let's just get bigger, let's just scale, let's just get bigger. And I think there was this sort of hidden, illusion of this big pot of gold at the end of it. And I'm not saying the pot of gold isn't there, if you get bought and get sold. But the businesses that are getting sold in e-commerce now, the ones that are profitable in our world anyway, the ones that we are helping sell and gear up for a sale, they every single one has to be profitable. They're all looking for something like 10% EBIT contribution, regardless of size. So like Mark says, at some point you're going to ask yourself, and I think quite a few people last year started asking themselves, well, when are we going to make any money out of this? Because a lot of the time money can go back into stock, it can go into ads, and you're actually, at what point do we take the profit out? And I think that's when the profit velocity sheet works really well, because like you said there, you could be adjusting your spend and either make no difference, because you're spending way too much, and you're actually, you're going from a 25% profit down to a 4% profit with no meaningful return. Like, you might as well reduce the spend and take 25% profit, because it isn't going to make much difference. It depends on what kind of business you have. It depends on your lifetime customer value, of course, doesn't it? If you've got a business that's selling mattresses and you're only getting one sale typically off the customer, you got to make the profit there and then, because they're not coming back like they are for a monthly subscription of a vitamin brand. So
I need an analogy, don't I?
Well, we do need an analogy, and I was expecting that you would have given us one then, but you didn't.
Yeah, it just feels like it's almost like you have to. How much should I spend depends on the day and the month that you're in, and the dynamics that you're looking at. So it's almost like it's based around having the right data and being able to see the thing you're actually trying to actually achieve.
I've got it right. I've got it. The answer of how much you should be spending. Do you remember the three things we did? It was like the target sheet, the margin calc, the drop by drop, and it was those three things. It was like, well, what car am I traveling in, which gives you an idea of the top speed. This basically won't mean anything to anybody, I don't think, but it's what I spoke about in stage. My normal script, which is you need to know what your current e-commerce business is capable of. Like, are you in a Skoda or can't say that anymore, are you in like a Lada or a Ferrari? So how fast can the business go? The next question is like, how fast am I going according to my top speed, and then it's essentially it's how it varies. So the drop by drop, because it's working out. I haven't explained that very well completely at all, but basically you got to figure out how much you can spend according to the mass of the business right now, and where you want to be. But the second question is you got to spend when you can. And I think maybe that's what you were alluding to then, is that seasonality plays such a big part of things. On the run up to Christmas, let's say, in lots of businesses it was seasonal. The conversion rate will triple. And that's when you should be spending the hardest, because your cost of acquisition goes lower and your return on ad spend goes up. So you have to first of all figure out how much you can spend with an acceptable profit margin. The second question is adjust that spend according to the season or demand, basically.
I'm just trying to think if there's something else where someone has to kind of like play with the dials to kind of get it right based on what's happening. It's almost like you're sailing across the sea, and you've got to look at the weather, and then you've got to make a decision on where you're going, where you're not going, what you're doing, and you've got to make the best, the best path across it. Because, like, for example, I wasn't aware that Betting Envy was going to have such a good weekend, so maybe would have spent more had I known it was going to be as good as that. But it was difficult to see. But obviously, I know that other weekends do really well. But I was spending a lot more than I had been. Like, I was spending £2,000 a day.
Well, and the only reason you were spending, I think, just to not overcomplicate it, the only reason you were spending, how much you were spending a day? You were spending £2,000 a day. The only reason you were spending that, and that was on Google, the only reason you were spending that was because you could. And you knew that you could, because you were still within the acceptable new customer and overall ROAS rates that we'd set. So we'd set that we want to be at a 250, a 250. We've got decent margins.
For first-time customers.
Yeah, for
but
250.
Overall, we want to be higher than that.
And so that's where we want to recruit, and we will spend as much as we can until we go below that. So for every dollar or every pound, we want $2.50, and we spend as much as we can. So I think, do you know what? If we went back and re-recorded the answer to the second question, that you would spend as much as you possibly could when you could, and that's based on profit and seasonality. And the reason why we've gone round in the circle is because it's kind of like the most interesting question that is actually at the core of our whole model, our whole program, our numbers sheet, our philosophy of how we scale, and which is why we've laboured the point. We've gone around the circles a little bit trying to find a nice analogy, but I think generally it is that you spend as much as you can within the allowable maths of the business, which is margin and lifetime customer value, and that's probably the biggest thing you could do.
I could probably summarize it. It's easy. Is you maximize the profit. You spend enough to maximize the profit velocity for the minimum amount of money you want to take out the business in profit this month. That's the answer. So, you don't want to make a loss each month.
I think you're absolutely right. But I remember loads of times I've been in meetings, not so much recently, but like where brands would boast at how high their ROAS was. Oh my God, I've got a really high return on ad spend, and I'm like, why? You're saying that like a good thing. Like, you just shut the shop at 11 o'clock in the afternoon. You had customers waving like £20 notes outside, and you there's a closed sign on your door. So you got to know what's an acceptable.
You've got to see it as an investment. You've got to see it as investment,
well,
because
I think people do. I think people do. I think they see.
Let me just finish that point, because I think that's important. So, like, if you take that money out of the business and put it in the bank account, and you get 4% on it, or 3.5% interest, right? That's what you're going to do with the money. Yeah, you're going to put it in the bank account. If your business has a rate of return of 20%, if you keep that money, you reinvest it in that business, and it's 20%. Why wouldn't you put it in the business rather than the bank account? So that's the decision you've got to make. Is this money better in the bank, or is this money better being reinvested into the business? Now, sometimes businesses get to a point where you can't reinvest any more money. in them. And it's better to take the money out and use it on a different business or use it in a bank account and invest in something else. But if you've got a business that is, the money you put back into it and you grow, the profit velocity is so much higher that it's way, way better than any other investment that you've got in your world. Why wouldn't you do it? It's basically compounding, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, absolutely. The interest rate, you basically compare how can I get a bigger return on my money? Is it better in the business or is it better in the bank? And fundamentally, that's what it comes down to. But I also think our philosophy's changed a lot. So go back 10 years ago, we were optimizing businesses because we wanted to get a higher conversion rate. That's why we were optimizing businesses. We wanted to get a high conversion rate. And in the last, 5-10 years, we're optimizing businesses so that we can get a higher return on ad spend. And that's how we scale, because there's no point trying to dodge the gorillas in the room. It's the gorillas in the room are Meta and Google, and we can't just circumnavigate them. Like, we've got to hit them head on. So we've got to understand them. And so if that's why we improve conversion rate, because it improves return on ad spend, and that's why we improve average order value. So I think mainly just it's just become like the biggest way to scale. It's expensive, but it's only expensive. Somebody said to me the other day, she said, "Oh, I can't afford." She was selling wine, and she might be listening to this. And I'm going to change what she said, because we were chatting about. Well, I'll tell you exactly what she said. She was selling wine in the UK online, and I was saying, have you seen the Vivino, the Vivino, which is like a marketplace for wine? And I said, how much? I said, I think you should go and look at that. She said, I can't afford it. It's too expensive. And I was like, what do you mean? Oh, it's too expensive. And I said, well, it's only it's irrelevant. It's like, it's what's the percentage of spend, and whether or not you make a profitable contribution there, and what's the difference. There's no such thing as, if it's expensive, it is not profitable to do so in any level, and that's the definition of what. So people go, oh, Google ads are expensive, Meta ads are expensive. Well, what are you comparing that against? I mean, that doesn't make that that's just your made up emotional interpretation of what expensive means, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, you have to kind of again, it comes down to investment. Can I use Google ads, even though it maybe it seems ridiculous. If you looked at the amount of money we're spending on Google for betting envy, you think it's ridiculous, but it rotates back. We give them some money, Google gives us some money back. We give them some more money, gives us some money back. It just rotates around. It's not real, really. Well, it is real money.
The fantastic thing about, what an amazing business model, Google and Meta. Look at what we've spent in total in the last year on ads. In total, we have spent in 12 months £942,000, and we've given that to Google and Meta. But in return, we've got.
If someone spent £942,000 with us, we would be their best friend.
Well, Google they won't even answer our emails. We won't even say, Google, why have you just given us
They do
warning?
know. Now they've made me a premier partner, and she rings me up from Dublin and gives me nice things.
If anyone has,
she invites you to Cannes Film Festival.
That way,
you know that.
Well, look, if I didn't have children and a job, I'd love to go. Now I'm gonna say, if anybody's got any Google problem warning that they don't understand the answer to, just get Mark and he'll just contact his.
The answer, no, he won't.
The answer is no. The answer is no. Listen, we haven't done very well with the questions. I think we've answered the first one. The first one.
Someone the other day bought the book. They bought a book for $9 or whatever it was, and then she put a comment and she says, "Oh, Mark, could I come and talk to you about my Google Analytics issues?" I'm like, What? Because you bought a book for $9? No, you can't. Come and talk to me about your Google Analytics.
This is the promise I make, that every book sold, Mark will have a personal one-on-one for at least an hour.
Yeah, I'll just completely dig into all your Google Analytics problems because you put like 700 tracking things on and someone's made a massive mess. And then you buy my book. I'm not even going to say it. I'm not even going to say it because someone will clip that clip and they'll be like, yeah, you promised.
Well, they don't need to. Anyway, just use AI.
Yeah, exactly. One more question. Well, I think we may have two more questions, unfortunately.
Well,
no, we've got two more questions. I don't think we're going to get...
No, the second one's an easy question, I think. Do you want to do the second question?
What should be your first hire when you want to scale sales?
No, that's not the second question.
Oh, that's true. Seriously, we've only done the first question.
Yeah, we've only done the first question. And obviously, those, that teaser at the start, people go, oh yeah, I really want to know, like, what's the answer to this one? Yeah. I only didn't get the first one, so we're really disappointed. You have to wait till the next week of the Hammersley Brothers e-commerce podcast because we can't give us a simple answer. Second question?
I had envisaged that these were going to be like pithy answers that we could just put on Instagram as little reels, but like, it's not. Number 2, when starting a new site, is it best to have a local domain like a .co.uk or a .com?
Yes, that's a simple answer. Yes, it is. Yes. It is definitely best. If you're in the UK, you should have a .co.uk. I'm not saying don't buy the .com as well and keep it and do a forwarding or whatever. But yeah, if you're in the UK, do it because there is definitely some confusion, and I know this from personal experience. And there was a couple of people who we coach who have a .com and they are selling in the UK. It depends on where your primary market is. I mean, if it's like most people, if it's like 90% UK, if you're in the UK, most people tend to be quite territory specific. So obviously it depends where you're selling. So if you're in the US, you're probably selling to US people. If you're in the UK, you're probably selling mostly to the UK, and you might have some crossover. So wherever your primary territory is, that's where your domain is, because there's a business right now that I know that is has got a .com, and 90% of it's in the UK, and I'm like, do you think it's obvious that you're in the UK? Because if I'm in the UK and I see a .com, I think this is more unique to the rest of the world, not anyone in America. But it's basically a business in the UK. And the reason it makes a difference is, when you're making that decision of clicking through on Google Shopping or Google or even Meta, it's because the domain says .com and you're in the UK. There's a question to go, that's a US business. That's an American business. Yeah, I'm going to pay
UK import taxes on that.
Yeah, and they just don't even click. They don't even click through. So I think why would you... I get you should protect the domain. That's right. If I was starting a business, I'd go, well, I want to make sure it's got a .com domain, .co.uk, .us, etc., etc., and that's what I want
for global domination.
But if I was my main, rather than having we're going to have a .com because at some point, in 2, 3, 4 years' time, we might do a little bit of sales, in Europe or in the rest of the .com, in the US, but in the meantime, it's going to be really confusing for people because they really won't know if we're a UK business or a why take the risk?
Yeah, I mean, for Ben's business, he does the maps. He's got elvishmaps.com, and he sells all over the world. So that makes sense.
But you're based in New Zealand. There's no one in New Zealand.
He has got a New Zealand map, but I think he sold like 2 of them to mostly family. Yeah.
Mother and father.
It's elvishmaps.com. Go buy a map off him. He'll be very happy as a 17-year-old. He's basically his mood of his weekend is dictated whether he sells a lot of maps or not. So
go
have a look.
What's his profit velocity?
I need to get his drop by drop sorted out by country because it's across all countries at the moment.
Well, for him, it would make sense to do .com, obviously, because he's completely international, isn't he? But but if my main territory is the UK, if I had no specific main territory, I think it would be I would start by Europe and I'd do it by continent. But Most people
do you want to
be
do
territory specific.
The other questions next time? So we've done 35 minutes, or do you want to do one more question?
Oh, it's 40 minutes now. We did have a little gap where your microphone broke, didn't it? But I don't know. I mean,
I feel like we can drag these questions out for about 3 or 4 podcasts, and then we'd have to. Yeah, well, we've got 8 questions.
I mean, it depends. Do people when you listen to a podcast, people just tend to pause it when they, rather than go to the next episode, I think they kind of pause it. And if people are still interested in listening, they carry on.
So you're saying you want to do another question? There'll be somebody
there who'll still be listening. Well, I'm okay. I mean, let's do the third one, because I've said that now.
We'll do
let's do the third one. Let's do 3 ones. Yeah. Okay. So I'll ask the question this time. Number 3 is, what should your first hire be when you want to scale sales? I nearly actually read out the answer.
Read the answer bit as well.
Yeah, because we've put it underneath, which is pretty obvious. So the third question is, what should your first hire be? So you just got an established e-commerce business, and you're like, oh my god, I need help. Who should you hire first? Or who do we typically see the people hire? And it is actually an easy answer. So I'll let you.
Well, most people typically hire someone to do customer service and or product admin and things like that. But the correct answer is, in every business, the founder is able to do certain things that grow the business that no one ever can do. So like in Ian and my business, the thing that I can do in the business is product development. I can develop products. I can develop new services and products and like create things. If you look at we've done that for over 25 years. I've always come up with a thing. No one's going to come up with that. Well, to be honest, that's not true now. Some of the people are coming up with the other products, but like the fundamental shifts.
Yeah, you've just
come
upset up. Half the staff.
Yeah, half the staff. Yeah, but like the fundamental pivots, should I say, of the business have come from.
Do you know? I'm going to say yes, but I'm going to just flip it on its head and be like, because I agree with what you're saying. But I think what's more useful is what stuff do you not need to do, and what stuff do you find boring or like sucks energy away? So things that you find like that are repetitive, and that's typically why it's things like product listing on your website, like updating inventory and adding new products. Yeah, things like that.
I hate putting emails together. I hate doing reconciliation of the accounts. I hate doing customer service. I hate doing admin stuff, like when stuff gets broken. Like all those things, they'll take me out and it doesn't really add value. So I've removed myself from all those things. I don't do customer service. I don't answer emails. I don't do my reconciliation. I don't do my GST return. I just don't do any of those things. So that, like this podcast, I enjoy doing this podcast, but I don't enjoy doing the editing, and I don't enjoy doing the sending it out and all that, because I don't do any of that. We'll just record it and that's it. Someone else does all the other stuff. So effectively, I call it, eventually you want to get to the 90-10 rule, where you work out what the 10% is that is the value in any task, and then you give the 90% of the task to somebody else.
And I'm going to say one other thing as well. Sometimes some people don't necessarily know what they're doing. They might think, I'm not good at anything, and actually, if that is the answer, then just start by giving stuff away. And then it will free, because I know that some people will listen to this go, I am just run out of emotional energy. I'm being, it's sucking me dry, running this business. And I've just got no energy left. And you're like, well, why have you got no energy left? Oh, I just feel demotivated. Well, why do you feel demotivated? Oh, it's bloody, the customer service and like people, complaining, saying that delivery hasn't arrived or things like that. I was like, right, well, there's one thing that's sucking energy away from you, and it pulls you down. It's very important that you keep a positive mental attitude, because your growth is going to be dependent on your energy and how you feel. Yeah. And so if there's elements and your mojo. And if there's elements in the business that you think, oh my God, this is just getting me down, you got it. That's just even more important than you kind of going, oh, here's the 10% of the thing that I can do. I don't disagree with you. But if you're looking at this thinking, well, I don't know what I'm good at. I don't know what my bit is. Just start by offloading, and then it'll give you the little bit of space and mental clarity. And it does typically tend to be your customer service and then website admin, putting products on, doing those kind of big. And once you start with the team, well, we've done this really successfully with loads of our businesses where we've hired team in the Philippines to do stuff, and once you get a good team, and you go, oh my God, like there's so many times I've gone, I haven't got time to give this to anybody. I haven't got time to give this task to anybody. I'm not, I'm just going to do it myself. It's just quicker if I just do it. And you say that for like 10 years.
Yeah.
And then once you've got them up and running, you go, and that first moment where you've got them up and running, you've trained them, you've spent time with them, and you just flick that WhatsApp to them, and you go, oh my God, like what? Like it's quite liberating, and it takes a while, but just to be able to just forward and then not have to explain it, not have to go and worry about it. It's done, it's dealt with, and you know that they're going to follow the procedure really well. And obviously, the real moment is when you don't even have to flick the WhatsApp because you don't even know.
Different world.
Yeah, when our whole customer service team is built, and we've it's not outsourced, it's owned by us, but it's all done.
One thing I would say is it can be quite daunting hiring that first person, even if the Philippines person. And so I just wanted to say that the people, if you're listening to this on one of our programs, we do help you. We do have a service that helps people, but only for people on the programs. And I say it's only for the people on the programs because it's actually a lot of work to do, but it is a big accelerator for people on the program. So if you listen to this, you're on the program and you're looking to get someone, just reach out, because I don't think many people are aware that we do that because it's kind of done under the radar. But we've probably recruited about 100 people now ish into e-commerce businesses, and people come back for more, so we must be doing okay. Basically, I recruit so many people that I just put those job ads alongside the ones that we're recruiting for our own businesses, and that's how it's done.
The best thing, just an example of that, is that we actually use our team to do all the recruitment. So we recruited somebody to do the recruiting.
Yeah, exactly. There's no way I could be involved in it. I mean, it's just that's just like an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, it's time consuming. You've got to figure out the systems. You've got to do it. You've got to make sure, but it's like the lovely thing about it is that we get good results, and it sifts out it's to you. You've done this. It's your doing here, but it does sift out.
I am amazing.
Well, I would say MJ is probably better. To be honest.
Who trained MJ though, Ian? Who trained MJ?
Yeah, herself.
Yeah, herself. Yeah, she did pretty much. Oh, wait, take that on Ian. We may as well do the last question because we did promise we were going to do it at the beginning, and the last question is really easy.
Just stop. I was just about going. Oh, it's just winding up now.
All right,
and then you've hit me with the last question. I don't know what the last question is. Yeah, that's a big question. That. It's a good question. Yeah, it's the fourth question, which we're not going to do. It's going to wait.
We'll do it next week. You'll have
why do you advise on sticking to one ad channel until you max it out? Okay.
Laziness.
So yeah. Can't be bothered. Yeah.
No, we'll answer that in a lot of detail next week.
Well, that's going to go on for bloody hours, that question.
Well, what we're known for is just very quick answers, simplifying things down.
Yeah,
like 44
snippets?
minutes in.
Did you get your Instagram snippets for 20 seconds?
Oh God, no! It's a nightmare because there's a guy. I pay a guy to go through this podcast to look for snippets to pull out. Like
he says,
the poor guy must go, oh, there's a good question, and he's like, oh, but they've gone on for that question and they've answered it in 17 different ways. So what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
Dear me.
No, it's good. Well, listen, we'll hope if anyone has lasted this long, thank you. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
And we'll see you next time. When you're trying to go to sleep, you're insomniac track.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. See you soon. Bye.